we're just hanging out, having fun.
Yeah, man.
Just two mates having a good chat.
About to get kicked out of a cafe.
About to get kicked out because we've been here for so long, and we've had tea and coffee, so we've
had a couple things, but we're coming up to their lunch rush.
Yeah,
on this massive table.
We're coming up to lunch rush, and I feel like it's only nice to have something for lunch, and then. So we're going to be eating while talking, which is the first on the podcast. We're going to be having a mukbang here. So if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're not, we do have a YouTube channel. You can go watch this live. You can see Steve and myself. You can join the meal with us.
And to be honest, man, I really love eating. Like, I don't feel like I'm myself if I'm not eating. So I think everyone's actually going to get a far more authentic version of me right now. So right now I'm a bit flat, but when the food comes, game on. So
we might not even get any words out of you when the food's out and we're eating. So
we'll see what happens.
And I'm excited for it, but I'm excited for this chat because it's something we've been talking about for so long. We've only connected in the past 6 months,
if that. Yeah,
if like that. But then I've spent more time with you than my actual brother in the past 6 months. Now, not for bad reasons or anything. He lives in a different place, but we've been hanging out a lot. We've been working together a lot. We've been doing some cool shit together. You even came up to Mildura the other week, and
I came to your home.
Yeah, you got to. I got to go to your home and meet. Is it Bubba?
Bubba.
Yeah,
Bubba.
meet your grandma and your family.
Yeah.
It's been a wild 6 months. So, man, there's even things I don't know about you that I'm so excited to talk about on the podcast. So we're finally here. We're making it happen. How you doing anyway? With all this stuff that we've got going on, how you feeling?
It's cool, man. Like, I've been pretty flat lately a little bit, to be honest, if I'm being honest. But it's starting to come back together. I think it's just been a lot of, like, go for a very long time, which happens in life. And I'm pretty good at managing myself, I think. But, yeah, I've been a bit flat. But I'm very excited. And I feel like I've started this podcast out all like miserable and doom and gloomy. I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention. But yeah,
I like the realness, and I think that's something that really does stand out when since meeting you is like we can be real, we can be vulnerable, and that's where we get the most out of a conversation. That's where that realness brings truth. And when we're in our truth, that's when we can actually connect. And like that's like if you're listening right now, if you're feeling a bit flat, that's okay. We're allowed to have those moments. So I love that you're able to share that. Well, what's all the exciting things you got going on? Because, mate, you do a few things, but it's all exciting. I know all the things, but what about for those that don't know you? What's all the exciting things you got coming up? All that you're doing as well.
Well, life's just really exciting right now. It has been for a while, and us meeting and bringing our energies together and all of our, I guess, visions for the world and ourselves. Like, we've been able to come together with ourselves and other people to create some really fascinating things. So my part in all of that at the moment is obviously Cold and Conscious. That's the main kind of thing that we've got going on. Cold and Conscious being a community-driven event where we do meditation and breath work and ice baths and get people really out of their comfort zone for the purpose of growing. For the purpose of being a little bit better, for the purpose of life's not always going to be easy. We've seen that the last couple of years, but that's not a bad thing. It just gives us an opportunity to step into new versions of ourselves. So we focus on resilience, but we do it in a place where we can connect with each other and be around supportive people. Like, it's a very supportive environment. We'll probably get into that a bit more, but that's Cold and Conscious ultimately. So we got a few. You're running one of those. We got the one in Geelong. We're playing around with the other areas, waiting on permits and everything. A lot of like, it's going really good, and a lot of people are involved. And there's also a lot of behind the scenes business shit going on too. So that's like, that's eating up a lot of my time at the moment. Yeah.
But exciting.
Exciting as. Like, on top of that, I was in Sydney this weekend to do a facilitator's course, Oxygen Advantage. That was really cool because I just got to learn so much about breathing, about the body and how breathing works and how it impacts our lives. So, like, I just got to nerd out on that for a while, which is really cool. Yeah.
It's so much fun, and like for anyone that's been around us, which is very few people in these times, apart from being at an event, it's yeah, you feel the energy, you feel the vibration of it, because like we're excited to do this. We know, like the ethos we were just talking about before, making this sign that we're creating of like resilience and connection equals that impact. Like even like you just said, we've had very tough times over the past two years. If we didn't already have our own shit internally to deal with, we had an external thing that was bringing up all the internal stuff or expanded those things. So I think one thing that a lesson I kind of have gotten from Cold and Conscious is that it's not that things are going to be all smooth and you know, there's going to be no hurdles. It's that, can you be okay even when those things are happening? Can you find peace? Can you acknowledge that they're there and not try and avoid those things? Like step into those things. Before we get stuck into that, take us on a journey through growing up in Geelong, how you got to the point now where you're like, I want to help people find that connection and find that resilience within themselves.
Yeah, man.
And was it all smooth sailing from here?
Was it smooth sailing? Easy.
Yeah.
Well, piece of cake. Like, I couldn't have done it any other way.
Yeah.
Nah. There's quite a few different layers to the story. So, I grew up in Geelong. Geelong is, it's changed a lot now. When I was growing up in it, it was a very, very beautiful place with some beautiful people. And it was also like pretty raw as well. And there was some pretty, there was another side of it as well, which I kind of got to experience. And by that, I mean, like when I was a teenager, we were always causing trouble, as teenagers do. But we were causing a lot of trouble, started drinking, smoking, all of that stuff very young. And just, had some pretty crazy experiences in that kind of scene. So I was very much into the party lifestyle. And I mean, destruction was just a really exciting thing for us. Living very destructive lifestyles. Now, what ended up happening was that when I was in my early 20s, I lost one of my dear friends to suicide. So he decided to end his life at one point, and this was right in the heat of all the chaos. We're all living very fast lives, not the same fast that I'm living now, but it was a very different angle. But like, he did it, and then that year I ended up going to 9 funerals. And they were all men, and they were all suicides or overdoses, one or the other. They weren't all like close to me like that first one was, but it was still people within the kind of the scene. That was kind of like a, whoa, hold on, what the fuck, kind of moment. It didn't happen straight away, but I ended up realizing, like, if I keep this up, then there's only a couple different ways where this is going to take me. And it kind of rung true to something deeper within myself, because even being amongst all of that stuff, there was always an element of me that was like, this doesn't actually feel like me. Like, there's something else. There was an itch inside of me the whole time. I remember being very young, and we'd go drinking out in a park or something and looking at the stars and having a D&M, and I was like, yes, this is what I want. This is what I'm craving. And being at a young age in our modern society, that I kind of got that tangled up, and it felt like all the alcohol and everything else is where I experience it. But anyway, this kind of made me realize that that's not what I'm looking for. I can't keep this up. So I kept it up for a little while longer. I was at uni. I finished uni. And then there was nothing really keeping me in Geelong anymore. So I was like, all right, there's an itch inside of me that knows there's something more. Let's go scratch this itch.
Yeah.
I moved to Melbourne. In Melbourne, where am I at? In Melbourne, so it didn't actually really stop. In Melbourne, it got way more fast-paced, just in a whole different environment. And now I also started working for a company. It was a restaurant chain, and they were expanding pretty good. And I got there right at the start of the wave. I worked hard. I was very opportunistic, and I had some really good mentors. So I actually ended up climbing the ranks real quick there, and learning a lot of cool skills, meeting a lot of cool people, and just experiencing a lot. Also meant I was getting paid way more than I needed to be getting paid, and that all just went straight back into partying, into, all that kind of shit. So it hit another point eventually where I was working. There was a point where I was working 100 hours a week here, and I was also just going out all the time and just like living wild. So I was burning the candle at both ends, and it got to a point where I was like, this isn't what you came for. Thank you. Food time. Here we go. Turns out this is what I came for.
Thank you.
Yeah, so...
King of the castle.
Pause this. Hold that thought.
What a
Look how colourful this is.
What a breakfast.
Look how bright these greens are.
Of champions. Thank you, King of the Castle, for hosting us and delicious food. So we're going to eat and talk.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. No, right. I'll inhale this anyway. That's what happens when you work in hospitality for all those years. You learn how to just breathe it in. Yeah. All right, man. Where was I? So, yeah, I was burning the candle at both ends. I was like, this is not what I moved up for. This is not following that itch inside of me. And I had to change. So at that point, I was listening to a lot of podcasts. That's when podcasts were sort of starting to happen. And pretty much everyone that was inspiring me at that time, they were all people that had something in common. That was that they looked after their body and their health, which is not something I was doing. Yeah. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I wanted to go, but I knew that I really had to start looking after my body so that I could look after my mind. It was a very much like, I was always very intellectual in that kind of a sense. So I was like, my mind is my weapon, and that's what I want to sharpen right now. And to do that, I had to access my body first. So I stopped drinking. I stopped smoking. I stopped everything like that. I started eating really, really clean. I was going to the gym a lot. I started going to float tanks every week. I started having cold showers and everything, really. I just dived right in. It was a very holistic output. And I just went for that. And things started to change very, very quickly for me. Because for me, that was the point where it was just like, no, this fucking itch has been here forever. Fucking go for it now. Like, don't stop. Yeah, man. So that's when I started doing everything like that. I ended up leaving the restaurants there, doing a couple little things. Ended up working at, long story short, I found myself into a new job where I was, I had all the skills that I learned, like I was managing, but it was in an environment where they were doing all the things that I was doing for my health. I was working at a wellness facility. And yeah, I guess my intention at that time was if I need to learn habits that are or if I want to learn how to really look after myself and my body and do this for the long term, then I need to create good habits. And the best way to create good habits is to surround yourself by those kind of people. Surround yourself by the best. So that was my thought. I spent the next 3 years just surrounding myself by the most hardcore motherfuckers I've ever met and learning some habits in terms of how to look after myself. Yeah. That is a nutshell version of the story of where I am right now. Yeah.
And then coming back.
Yeah. All right, we'll get into that part.
Yeah, so came back to Geelong, and then...
All right, so that's it. All right, that's part two. So
he's eyeing off the food like...
I'm eyeing off the food like crazy. I also know we're on a timer as well. I'm like, I've never rushed through a story like this so quickly. So, and it still goes on. But anyway, yeah, so I was at this place, and I learnt a ton. Like, while I was in Melbourne here in this kind of environment, I did get very deep into the holistic wellness space, into that kind of scene. I got a lot more in touch with my spiritual side as well, and things were fantastic. I was doing a lot of breath work and a lot of cold therapy. That did start before I started up at this place, but here it really fine-tuned it. Like, I got to learn. I was learning. My boss was Wim Hof instructor, so we were doing a lot of those kind of events. We had a cold tub, so I was doing cold tubs every single day. Like, I was doing 5 days a week. I was in the cold, and yeah, I really got immersed in that kind of thing. What ended up happening at one point was there were some things in that environment as well, in the workspace, that were a little bit full on, and I felt that I ran my course there. COVID hit too, and yeah, man, thank you. Appreciate it. When COVID hit, it was another kind of point for me. Everyone went through something, obviously, but like, for me, it was kind of like, man, you've done all this work, you've been doing all these things. I was approaching my 30s as well. The first weekend of lockdown in Melbourne was my 30th birthday. So that was fun. But I was approaching my 30s, and I'd never really cared about that ever before. But I started to get to a point where I was like, hold on, I'm 30. And like, what the fuck have you done? Like, what have you got to show for it? Those things started coming to me.
That happens near your birthday. Like, you start reflecting and going, what am I doing? Like, yeah, we know it's just a number, but we start to go, oh no, like it's a milestone.
Mm-hmm. What came up for me, are you a Pink Floyd fan? I'm sure somebody listening to this is a Pink Floyd fan. They've got this song called Time, and there's a line in there that really, really hit me because it's like, what did he say? He's just talking about time. He's like, no one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. And there's more to the song, obviously, but it was kind of like, for me, it was like turning 30 felt like now I'm old enough and aware enough to understand what it feels like to live through an entire decade. Because I think when you're in your teens, when you're up 10 to 20, you're too young. You don't really know what's going on. But then 20 to 30, you're in this age where you're finding yourself, you're learning what type of person you want to become, you're exploring everything. And amidst all that exploring, it was like, hang on, no, it's not like you're about to start and like things are about it. It's already happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. And now the ironic thing is that the guy who wrote that song was 29 when he wrote it. So,
whoa.
Yeah. So, but that started hitting me. And then that was hitting me already before COVID. And then COVID hit. And I was like, man, like you've got, at the start of it too, everyone's thinking like, this is happening, da-da-da-da. You got everyone with an opinion. And I was like, what's the point of me having an opinion? I'm barely in a position where I can look after myself right now, let alone have like anybody else. Like what weight does my opinion have? I can't do shit for the world. That's kind of what was going through my head. And for me, that was like a real defining moment. I was like, well, I'm never going to be in this position ever again. If shit hits the fan, I am going to be in a position where I do have more responsibility. I've at least got my own shit together, and then I can be responsible for others too. And that was really, really what changed everything for me. Like I'd been scratching this itch for a while or trying to scratch it, but for me it was like, stop fucking around now, like go do it now, like actually mean it now. So I finished up my job here. I decided, I was in Melbourne for the first couple lockdowns, they're the hectic ones, and I thought, it's time to come home. I'd been in Melbourne for 7 years. I only meant to go for a year, because the idea was just to sort of leave and expand my mind, get out of the Geelong bubble, and see something new. But yeah, 7 years happened, so I ended up moving back. When I came back, at this point, I'm a very different person. I've changed a lot. I've experienced a lot of things, and I've done a lot of the inner work, as you say. When I came back, I was very aware, though, that like your environment has a big influence of how you think. And so for me, it was so bittersweet being here because it's home, but at the same time, everywhere I look, there's ghosts. And yeah, it was really bittersweet. I didn't really know what to do with all of that. But I came to a realization pretty early on that, like, yeah, there are ghosts and there are things here. And there is, just because I've done all this work, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to slip back into old habits. That's very possible. And if I'm as serious as I say I was at the start of COVID, I have to find a way to make sure that isn't the situation. And to do that, we need to create new memories. Simple as that. We need to create new memories that are going to be better than these ones and that are going to flip the script on it. And I guess the ghosts were only half the story. It's like, let's actually play out the rest of the story. Yeah. I think we've all got ghosts of our past, and I think a lot of people fall into the habit of believing that is their life and that's what defines them. But I don't believe that. I think maybe it is right now, but hey, you're still breathing. Yeah. We can change this. So that's what we did. Step one in doing this. Step one for me was, I need to be doing more cold therapy because I was doing that so much and it was so helpful to me. So I need to do more ice baths. So me and Stefan started. He'd come down from Melbourne as well. This is my best friend Stefan. We grew up together, same shit. He came back from Melbourne and we just started going to the beach every day, doing breath work, having D&Ms with each other and jumping into the cold water. Summer started coming around, so the water got a bit warmer. So I was like, fuck it, let's get a pool here. So I got this little one-person pool, threw some ice in it. Everyone's walking past like, you fucking crazy people. Like, we were getting so many looks and so many comments. And I was used to it. I'd been doing, like, breath work and everything on the beach by myself for, like, 5 years at this point. So I was like, yeah, cool. It doesn't even faze me shit like that. I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do, so this is what I'm doing. But we got that. After a few weeks, I realized that if we invite 3 or 4 people and charge them $5-10 each, then I don't have to pay for ice. I got free ice baths. Epic. All right, this is going good.
The entrepreneurial mind kicked in.
Yeah, started happening. And then it just started blowing out. More and more people wanted to come. More and more people started becoming a part of it. And I was like, all right, cool, this is something we need to do here. I wasn't entirely surprised, to tell you the truth, that happened, because in Melbourne, I knew that there was a lot of events, there was a lot of things happening, so there was a big community there. Like, maybe not all in one place, but there was communities. Where in Geelong, I knew that there was a lot of like-minded people, but I didn't know where the place was that was bringing them together. And so coming back, I was like, this is like, if it doesn't exist, well then, I guess I have to make it exist. Yep. Yeah, that's just kind of how I thought. If I want this, then we got to make it exist.
Yeah.
So that's what that ended up becoming. It was a little bit of a meeting place for everybody to come together who felt the same way, for people who just wanted something better. It created an option for us, because for me, for Steph, and for people like us in Geelong, we felt like there was never another option. It was like the party's kind of life was just how it was. But now it's like, okay, there is other ways of handling this. There is other ways of doing it. And rest is history, man.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And now here we are. Yes, definitely eat. Otherwise, you've been eyeing it off for so long, and I'm like, I don't want to stop you from talking. No, but we've got to eat as well. But it's fascinating. Like, even the part that you touched on of, like, ghosts of, going home. Maybe those who have moved away can relate, or even when you've grown up, like, you kind of still feel those ghosts of your past and let them define you. Like, I know for me, every time I moved back to Mildura, I was like, it kept bringing up the memories of soccer. It kept bringing up the memories of school, of ex-partners, of certain situations, or maybe even like, I guess Geelong is kind of small town, but the biggest small town in Victoria, outside of Melbourne.
Second biggest city, but small town mentality.
Yeah, and especially Mildura. Like, Mildura's massive in terms of, there's 80,000 people. It's not as small as what a lot of people think, but that small town mentality that does kick in is one where, I go back and they go, well, how's soccer, Carlo? And I'm like, what do you mean? I haven't played for like 6 years. Like, yeah, that was me, but it's not who I am now. And yes, it's a part of my past, but it's also, when that comes up, it also brings up a lot of memories and a lot of, maybe pain and heartache and whatever it may be. They also then, small town mentality, they'll be like, oh, how's that girl going that you dated 10 years ago? And I'm like, I don't know, like, why the small town mentality is kind of like, well, what you did in your past is who you were, and you were known at school for XYZ. And for me, there was always that I guess anxiety of going home, that was like, oh man, what are they gonna think? And especially now, like, you've stepped into a new version of you. We like to party still, but in a different way. No drugs, no alcohol, just cacao. And for us, especially me going back and starting to run, I've evolved. I moved away, I evolved. I've created new beliefs, new mindsets, new interests. Mm-hmm. I came back and I was like, very similar to yourself, I want to start things. I want to do things and bring those like-minded people together that just want to work on themselves, but people that cared about the same things I did. And I noticed that starting to create a shift in Mildura, and we started hosting events. I think one of them we had, which is one of our yoga, meditation, conscious events, were like, 60 people in a room, in a hall. And then another one that we did last year had over 100 people. So I started to see that. I thought, nah, they won't be interested. There's not people like that. I grew up here. I started, bringing that judgment back on the town of like, nah, there's no one like me here. But when I started doing these things, those people started coming, and we just launched Cold and Conscious, a couple of weeks ago in Mildura, and Steve, Dan, Claire all came up for it. And it's like, there was nearly 30 people that wanted to step into breathwork and step into the ice and all these things that we're doing. And it's like, well, just because you grew up somewhere doesn't mean you have to go back, and you grew up somewhere and you had a past doesn't mean that that's what you have to stay on, and that's, like you said, define you. It's I guess a defining part in your past, but it's not the be-all, end-all. You can change that. You can come back and grow. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be, man. I can speak into this a lot right now, because it's like being from down here as well, down south in Geelong and Victoria and everything, so many people have been wanting to... Are we all good there?
I think so.
Let's hope so. We've got shit beeping. A lot of people down here always want to run away up north.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to run away to Byron, to the Gold Coast, to Bali, to something like that. And for me, I was kind of like, we don't need to do that. Like, why is, like, yes, your environment has a lot to do with your mindset and everything like that, but I really believe everything's an inside job as well. Like, as within, so without. I really believe, like, well, yes, the environment's got a factor, but if you can change yourself on the inside and overcome your environment, then your environment's going to reflect that too.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, I don't want to go up north to all these places because I actually love where I'm from and I love being around here despite all of those memories and everything. They don't have to dictate my experience of my life around here. I choose to let them dictate that experience just because they were my past. But that's my choice and I can choose that as well. Now, what happens if a lot of people choose this? Like, if I'm not the only one around here that makes that decision to not let my past dictate my present or my future, imagine we all do that. Well, now we don't have the Geelong that I grew up in. That doesn't exist anymore other than in my memories. So I really thought about that when I came back because I'm thinking about, like, all these places like your Byrons and, like, everything and all the magic that comes down there. And I'm like, that's really cool, but why can't the whole world be like that? Yeah. Like, that's what we want, isn't it? Why can't it be everywhere we go ends up having that kind of energy and that kind of connection and that kind of experience? Well, that's not going to happen if we all congregate to the same places. Like, we actually need to take responsibility and create that for ourselves as well. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like, well, all right, what is that energy of all these places? What are people trying to find there? And let's make it here because we've got the opportunity to make it here. But I actually think we can go one better down here because up north, I'm not shitting on north. I love it. Like, but I mean, like, 3218. Now I'm getting all much along. Like, yeah. Postcodes out. We've actually got opportunity down here because I do believe that you have the best opportunity to grow within yourself when you step into your discomfort or when you step into your darkness, when you try and integrate your shadows. When you do hard things start to become less hard and you become better because of it. I really believe that on all levels of life. And so I didn't want to go up north and up into all these warm places and everything because I know I'll get comfortable there. I know I'll like it. I know that everything's set up so that it's going to be a very pleasant and pleasurable experience. And that's great. Nothing wrong with that. But down here, down in Geelong, excuse me, it gets cold.
Yeah.
We have 4 seasons in one day. You never know what to expect. And I feel like that's our opportunity. Like, I don't feel like too many places have managed to really make cold environments sexy, but I think there's potential in it because it is a mindset thing. Like, the only reason we think cold is a bad thing is 1, because we're not very adapted to it, but 2, because we tell ourselves that cold's a bad thing. Yeah. So I think if we stop telling ourselves that and we learn a way to actually embrace it a little bit, 1, on a physical level, we're going to learn to adapt to it, and it's actually not going to feel that bad. And this goes for everybody. I know a lot of people are like, cold's not my thing. I know, but it's also your ancestors survived ice ages. So you can definitely, you've got it in your body to be able to do it. It is doable. We know that. It's a fact. You can do it. Yeah. But if you can get yourself to a place where you can experience that kind of discomfort, you're going to start to see a beauty in it. You're going to start to, rather than it being something that's bad, your mind's going to be like, maybe there's opportunity in this. Maybe there is actually something beautiful here that I'm not getting. Maybe there's lessons in this that I'm not experiencing, and there's lessons in this that I can only experience when I'm in this place. Yeah. If you want to feel something or experience something in a certain way, I don't think you have to go anywhere other than where you're at right now. And if we can start to tap into that and really recognize that within ourselves, then we won't need to go anywhere to experience these things and meet these people, because those experiences will be all around us no matter where we go. So I want more of that. And I like being down here in Geelong and Victoria because we do have the opportunity. We do get cold. We do get the other side of the spectrum that other places don't get. And so I think we've actually got opportunities for more growth and more lessons, in a sense, or at least different kinds of lessons and a different kind of beauty. Yeah. And that's what I want. That's what I'm very excited to be a part of creating.
Yeah. And I guess it also starts to, I know for me, when you're looking for that escape on the external, like, I'll just change my environment every time. What does that mean? Every time you run into a struggle, I got to move house, I got to move job, I got to go everywhere. You'd have so many jobs, and yes, I've had like over 30, but it was never at a point where I'm like, oh, there's a struggle, I need to change. If we do that, we don't actually build the resilience of moving through something. Now, we're not saying put yourself in a shit relationship just because of the fact of learning and growing, but I think one of the big things I've learnt with, even doing cold and conscious, and whether it was meditation or whether it was, cold exposure, it's, can you put yourself in a container, yeah, that's safe, that's highly stressful, so that you can adapt and you can learn to build that resilience, so that when things come up in life that do test you, that do challenge you, you don't have to run from it or freak out. You can sit with it and be like, I can breathe through this. And I think for a lot of times in my life, the easy option is to run away. The easy option was to, move to a different place.
The path of least resistance.
Yeah, was to leave that relationship or that situation to then go to something easy. Was the easy option is to not sit with my feelings. It's to go eat some junk food or to be lazy and watch Netflix and distract myself or go on social media. But when we're avoiding, especially those things within, we're not moving through it. We're just piling it on top, and eventually it's going to catch up to us.
Yeah, and the more you get put into that position again, the more you're going to get used to using that coping mechanism, which was not deal with it, avoid it.
Yeah,
and that's you got the option to do that. I don't think it's the optimum option, but it is an option.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, man. No, you're right. What was it? What was I about to say? What were you just saying?
I was like, we use it as an avoidance, to not do things, and for me, this is where it's like when we do Cold and Conscious, when we host an event, and if you haven't been to one, if you're in Melbourne, Geelong, Mornington, Altona, come down Mildura and all the other locations that are going to be popping up soon. It is that internal test of like you said, your body can survive it. Your body can move through it. But can your mind keep you in that space?
Yeah. And the really interesting thing is that... Oh, are we off again?
No, we're good.
Okay. The really interesting thing is that your body physiologically responds in the exact same way whenever it experiences any of these stresses. Like, stress comes to us in a variety of ways. It might be something crazy like I'm in an airplane and it's starting to go down. That's stressful. Or jumping out of a plane to parachute. It could be approaching a really pretty girl at a bar. It could also just be as simple as having too many notifications on your phone and having to check those. Or it could be an ice bath. Either way, all of these things, they're very different ways of looking at stress, but ultimately it's your body is experiencing the same physiological process. And stressful things feel really stressful, and we start to panic because it sends a signal to our brains to get the fuck out of this situation. Like, I don't want to be here. This isn't a safe situation for me, and I need a jet.
So it's like survival mode.
Survival mode. Yeah, survival mode, fight or flight mode. We activate our sympathetic nervous system. And it's very natural to want to take the path of least resistance then, because that's literally what it's one aspect of what that system is in our body for. Like, we needed it for survival throughout our evolution. It would signal that it's time to go get out of this situation. Yeah. So every fiber in our body and every little part of our brain is telling us this is not good. But it's not always the case. We know that. Like, we know that if you spend 3 minutes in an ice bath, you're not going to be in trouble. We know that if you do approach that guy or that girl at the bar or whatever, like, chances are it's going to be all right at the end of the day. So it's not always as threatening as it used to be once upon a time for us, but our bodies are still responding in the same way.
Yeah.
But we can learn to overcome this. We can learn to adapt to this as well. How do you do that? Exposure. You expose yourself to it. If you start to expose yourself to these stresses and you start to understand that the patterns that your mind goes through when it's in that stressful situation, you can learn how to take a bit more control over that situation. Your body can jump into a sympathetic state, but you can learn how to activate your parasympathetic, which, as opposed to survival mode, this is rest mode. and we do have a little bit of control over that through breathing, through things like that. So the more we expose ourselves to it, the better we get at actually handling these stresses. And so stresses that aren't so stressful to us, they just seem that way, now we can overcome them when they come into our lives. They don't have to define us anymore. You know when we don't get that opportunity? When we run away from them. Then we don't get the ability to adapt, because we don't need to adapt at that point because we got out of danger. So, yeah, you do have that choice, but is it the best choice? Well, I don't know. I think if you can get yourself used to understanding your stress response and allowing yourself to really be present in that moment, and I think you're in a better position to make a more optimal choice, which is in line with your being and your essence and who you are and what you want to be achieving in this world.
Yeah.
And that's a good place to be.
And that's where, like, even the whole, your comfort zone is obviously comfortable. Well, to a point. I think it gets very uncomfortable, your comfort zone, because you go, well, I'm not actually doing anything. I don't have that purpose or that drive. So when it comes to putting ourselves in the discomfort, and life will do that. Life is going to throw you challenges. It's going to, universe, life, God, whatever you want to call it. Like, life is supposed to have these things. We then judge them, and of course we then feel them as uncomfortable, discomfort, awkward, anxious, whatever it may be, scary, fears come up. But again, if we keep running from those, then we how are we going to learn from them? How are we going to grow from them? Like, I look back on my life and it's like all the things that made me very uncomfortable. Moving overseas at 19, moving away from home at 16, having that conversation I didn't want to have. Stepping out in my business, like, actually launching everything. Yes, it was uncomfortable, but I remember being on stage in Bali at an event, and I was up in front of 100 people, and I was so nervous. I was shaking. I was like, I wanted to say something. You could hear it in my voice that I was just anxious and worried. And Ruby from who's been on the podcast, she come up to me and she was on stage as well, and she's like, I'm like, how do you I want to be comfortable up here. And I want to not be, nervous and any of that. And what made me really, I guess, it got me at ease was she said that it's not about, this being natural for you. It's that being comfortable with being uncomfortable is what's going to allow you to step into this more and become a master at it. And for me, since that day, it's like, even when I host Cold and Conscious, and some days there's 30 people, some days there's, 80, 90 people. Speaking on Instagram Live, sometimes there's 30 people, sometimes there was 5,000 on one of them. So for me, it's like, it always brings up that nervousness, but I know that it's also cousins with excitement. And each time I do this, if I'm, if I know why I'm doing it, I'm not gonna die. I'm just speaking, I'm just sharing. And even if I get stuck, that it's okay. And every time I've done it, it's now built that muscle. That's that resistance in the gym, right? If you don't put resistance against your muscles, it doesn't grow. It stays the same, or it depletes. It reverses that process. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's like everything that I've been through, as painful as it was, or as uncomfortable as it was, it taught me so many lessons about who I am, and also gave me the resilience to do all the things that I do now.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt, man. And it's not going to feel comfortable. That's the nature of it being uncomfortable. Like, it will still feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And this doesn't have to be a bad thing. Yeah. I think if you're thinking very short term, then I want to get out of this discomfort and I want to get out of here. But if you can think a little bit more long term, what's this discomfort actually doing for me that's going to be better for my future? That's just going to be it. Excuse me. Oh, eating and talking podcasts, end up burping all the time. Far out. But yeah, I've done an ice bath thousands of times now, and every single time it's still nerve wracking. Like, it's still like, oof, all right, this is going to be something. But it doesn't matter. I just don't register that as being a bad thing anymore, because I understand what's on the other side of it.
Yeah, like, we're not sitting there going, this is warm. This, I'm not feeling the cold. No, like, every time I do it as well this is fucking cold. And my body's going, get out.
Yeah.
But can you sit with that?
Yeah. You can separate yourself from that. You can sort of, you get to a point where you can just not detach. I don't think you want to detach from it completely and like disassociate, but you can separate yourself from that situation and be like, okay, this is just what I'm going through right now. It's cold and I'm freaking out a little bit, and what can I do? I can breathe. I can move through it. Like, and it's just not like I don't know. It's just like the displeasantness of it isn't bad. I think it's just putting that good and that bad label on it. It's just something else to experience while you are alive.
Yeah.
And you are still alive. Like, the fact that you can experience this not so pleasurable thing means you're still breathing. Your heart's still beating. The show goes on. It's a beautiful thing. Like, celebrate that. You know what I mean? But if while we've got that mindset of bad things are bad, uncomfortable things aren't fun, and I'd just rather not do it, well, life's going to throw them at you anyway. Like it or not, it is going to come one way or not. And, yeah, you're either going to be ready to face it or you're not. You're either going to be able to celebrate it and find the good in it or you're not.
Yeah. I think it's like that's when we try and avoid those things, we avoid the fullness of life. Like, why are we trying to avoid half of our life when a lot of the most important lessons come from that discomfort. A lot of growth comes from that discomfort as well. So why are we trying to avoid those things? Especially like within, like, this is where I want to go, even deeper with you on this, is like, what's something that was the most, or if there's not the most, something that was just super uncomfortable for you and it was actually a struggle to get through?
Wow, man. A lot of those. Something that was really uncomfortable. I mean, being in hospital last year was really uncomfortable on a physical level.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was doing a bit of breath work and I kind of smashed myself up on it. There are dangers to breath work if you're not careful, guys. But I was in ICU for... I'll tell this story. I was thinking, is this actually relevant? Yeah, it is relevant. I was in ICU for about 12 hours because I was coughing up blood all over the beach after doing some breath work, and I was refusing to go to the hospital, but I ended up giving in and going, and I was in hospital for 4 nights. But when I got to the hospital, I started realizing, like, at that point, like, hang on, like, something's fucked here. Like, I actually have done something, and just because I'm at hospital doesn't mean I'm going to get out of this one.
Yeah.
So I started having some really big existential thoughts at that one. I was like, what happens if I actually don't get out of here? And I'd always wondered how I'd be in that situation and what kind of person I'd be when faced with my mortality in that sense and that real of a thing. And I got to experience that. But what happened in that moment was that I realized, like, okay, if this is it, I've done my best. That came to me, like, straight away. I was like, I've done my best. I actually have. And I'm fine with that. So let's go in. But as soon as I realized that, I was like, you know what? This is going to be the hardest thing I've ever experienced. Because I was on oxygen. I was, like, coughing constantly. I was coughing up blood for 12 hours. Like, it was crazy. I was like, physically, this is going to be the most terrible thing I've ever been through. But at this point, I had faced discomfort enough and learned how to control my breath and learned how to just use my mind to get through these situations, that all I knew is that I just have to take this one breath at a time and I'll get through it. And as soon as that happened, as soon as I made that switch in my mind, I went from being the worst case in ICU, like my lungs were failing, my kidneys were failing, like everything was going bad. As soon as I made that mindset switch, everything started getting back to the point where the doctor was like, we don't know how this happened, but we don't know how you're getting so good either. I was like, oh, I know. It's just, this is a challenging thing that I need to go through. They were trying to, every opportunity, they were offering me medications, painkillers, this and that and everything. And I was like, I actually just want to sit and experience this because I want to, it's obviously happened to me for a reason, and I'm going to sit through it and see what this is about. Yeah. So, yeah, and that did sort of take me on a whole new tangent, to be honest, just sitting there and breathing through it and really understanding what I'm capable of in that sense and what's important to me. So that is one example. That's not necessarily the example I thought would have come to mind, but yeah, man.
Well, a great example of like a physical one, like, any sort of trauma to the body and maybe overcoming a disease, illness, sickness, like, we can mask these things. We can try and ignore them, but especially when we're faced with something that's probably so, like you said, intense, life-threatening. Like, I know for some people, I've had conversations with people that are like, I was told, not going to survive. Or you listen to those stories or read those books of like, they've been given 30 days left to live and now they're still alive and well, or they've had the cancer and they've overcome it. Like, there's going to be times where you don't have a choice. You have to sit with it. Yeah. Well, sorry, you still have a choice, but like, it's going to force you to sit with it. Yeah. And even in that moment, you didn't give up on yourself. I'm sure there was thoughts, but like you were like you made that choice.
To be honest, not even thoughts for me. And
No.
I only think it's because I've been practicing this stuff for half a decade.
Yeah.
Like, that's what really surprised me about the experience. Like, my mind did naturally go... It just, my mind took over, and it was just like, it's just not an option. Like, I don't know, I just knew. I was like, yes, this will be fine. It will suck, but it will be fine.
Yeah.
And it sucked. It was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. But I was cracking jokes the whole time. Like, I was being such a clown in there. Like, they're all so serious and not knowing what's going on. And I kind of just understood, like, I don't think Western medicine necessarily is going to have the answers for what's going on to me right now because of the breathing I was doing and everything. And they weren't, but I was having a ball. So, yeah. Tell you another one. Another thing is kind of just, like, sitting through the whole cold and conscious thing. Like, I told you this, I told everyone who's a part of it, I'm like, people come to Cold and Conscious to obviously have an ice bath, to step out of their comfort zone. And that is definitely a good tool for learning how to, it's a good tool to give you a little bit of an insight to what that stress response feels like in your mind, so that you do get to be a little bit more conscious and make more informed decisions when you're in that situation. That's what it is for me. But for people who are involved in it, like me and for you, we're going to be uncomfortable every step of the way. Not just in ice baths. We are going to be faced with discomfort, because that's what we're preaching right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
And, like, it's not easy running these events, man.
No.
Like, there's a lot of shit involved that people have no idea about. And that's come for me every step of the way. Like, this was never meant to get this big, to the point where in several locations, and we've got people asking us all around the country to come down. Like, it was just, it was like always a possibility, but it was never really part of the plan. And there is a lot going on all the time, and it takes a lot of energy to keep it going. And as much, I love it. Like, I love what it's doing and the communities it's creating and where it's taken us. But there is also that side of me as well that's always like, man, this is hard. And, like, I have to have tough conversations all the time. Got to negotiate with councils, and, like, all this kind of shit's always coming up constantly. I don't speak into it too much, because that's not everyone's problem. That's what I chose to step into, and so that's where I'm doing it now. But it comes every step of the way. It's like, realistically, like, if this isn't something that was so beneficial to the world right now, and there wasn't such a demand for it, would I be doing it? I don't know. Like, it's like there's way easier ways to make a living and to have a life. So, you know what I mean? But I am doing it, and it is necessary, and I enjoy I'm working harder than I've ever worked, and I've never been happier than I've ever been either. So, yeah, man.
I love that. And I've only known you, like I said, only in the 6 months, and there's been massive growth in that time. But I feel like the more you do it, the more you do anything, the better you're going to get at it. Mm-hmm. The more, and again, don't go break an arm to feel that discomfort to then be like, I'm going to get better at this.
Yeah.
No, life's going to do that anyway. But the more you have those conversations, but make it more, I feel like if we put so much pressure on, this is going to be a negative experience or an uncomfortable experience, like, just be like, it's going to be an experience, mm-hmm. and it may feel uncomfortable, mm-hmm. but the more I step into the fire, step into the ice, per se, the better I'm going to get at it. Yeah,
you do. It's not like, people like listen to me talk sometimes. They think, oh, this guy just loves pain and loves all this shit, like a David Goggins kind of guy. David Goggins just does the craziest shit all the time. Like, I don't. For me, it's not about that. It's more just about, like, I think naturally when we are healthy and our minds are in a good state of balance, I think our nervous systems are able to regulate these situations a bit better anyway, which means we just do have more awareness over it when it comes up. Yeah. And that's all it is for me. It's like, we need to, we're not there as society. We're not as healthy as we ought to be, most of us. And we don't put ourselves into these uncomfortable mental challenges, physical challenges. Our nervous systems do not know how to regulate themselves in this stressed out environment like they ought to. So we need to practice getting ourselves to a point where our nervous systems can regulate themselves. Yeah. That takes practice. That takes repetition. That takes doing it and doing it. But eventually you are going to get to a point where you're like, okay, I understand this now. And now it's an upgrade. It's like you've upgraded yourself to an extent. Now when it comes at you in life, you're in a position where you can deal with that better. So it's not about constantly just doing this thing because it's painful or constantly throwing yourself into something that's just uncomfortable for the sake of it. It's like, this is a tool. This is just another practice. And yeah, when you can get your body in a bit of a better state, your mind in a better state, you're in a better position in general. So that's what it is. Get yourself there. I think that's the important part.
Yeah.
Then you choose to. And also, it's always going to change face. Like, once you face your fears don't have any power over you anymore. I'm a very, very big believer of that. And that's why I feel very strongly about facing your fears head on. But it gets tricky because your fear does change face. Like, ice bath might be, and for a lot of people, it is a genuine fear. They're terrified of it. But after you do it for a while, it's not going to be the same. And so if you're just throwing yourself in that ice bath to face that fear, it's like, well, it's not going to have the same effect because you've already done that. Your ice bath might be something that's not even an ice bath anymore.
Yeah. And I think that brings up that lesson of it, that it's going to, is it the ice or is it something else?
Yeah.
Initially it might be the ice because it's an experience where it's like cold and you have to deal with it.
It's a very tangible way of experiencing what you are experiencing in those moments, because you can't hide away from the cold. It is blisteringly freezing. Like, it is painful. So you can't run away from it. You have to face it. That's why it's a good tool for this.
And that's the thing, like you said, like it's about that repetition. As you said in your story, you've been doing these things for, 5-10 years, where it's like, I've been showing up and consistently, whatever it was, or however often it was, you've been stepping into that, so that knowing kicked in of like, I'll be okay. I got this. Yep. The more we do that, the more we experience those things that we can't run from, the more we go, I got this.
Yeah.
And I know that from the ice. The first week I came and seen you in Geelong, like the first week I took my hands out and you're like, what are you doing? Oh no, I had my arms out like a jacuzzi, because for soccer, it was just waist down.
Yeah.
And I get that. Like, that had its benefits just for my legs. But I was watching everyone else, and there was like older guys in there. There was like girls younger than me, and I'm going, why am I doing this? Like, I can do this. I feel like I started to then judge myself, and you never forced me. You were like, why are your arms out? And I'm like, because they're cold. And you're like, not here to be comfortable. We're not here to be comfortable. And I was like, and in my mind, it was just like, don't put them in. It's cold. It hurts. Blah, blah, blah. The next week, I think, was same thing sort of happened, but I just lifted my hands out, and you're like, I think you should get those hands in. And I'm like, yeah, but it hurts. And he's like, yeah, well, what are you holding on to? Like, use that as that is the thing you need to move through right now. Put my hands under. Of course, it was uncomfortable, but I did the 3 minutes. And now it's just like, because it's been a repetitive thing over and over, I get in down to my neck. Of course, these things are still going to come up, but now it's just like, I know why that's coming up, or what in my life am I avoiding still? And can I sit with it right now and find peace in it? And I think if we keep building on those things, then when the things come up, which inevitably they are, that's when we're going to be better fit for service to show up to those things. We'll be more calm and make decisions or choices that we actually want to make and align to our values, instead of freaking out, going into the sympathetic nervous system, shutting down our body, shutting down everything. We can move through things.
You respond rather than react.
Yeah.
You get this feedback from the universe around you, and you get to go, okay, this is what I want to do with that. Where if you're not used to having that moment to recognize that feedback, you'll just go into automatic patterns. You'll react. And that's, again, it's okay. There's no right or wrong ways about doing this, but we've all got reactions. We've all got ways of being, and a lot of these ways of being are experienced and also passed down from us. Like I always say, our parents they didn't just pass down our good looks. They also passed down our fears, our inspirations. A lot of our traumas were developed because of things that we picked up through our parents. And not that they did anything wrong. They picked it up from theirs. Like, they did the best that they could as well. But I guess the question of awareness becomes, well, do you want these... You react the way you react in a stressful situation because of the trauma that you've experienced in your life. How long do you want that to control your life for?
Yeah.
forever. Okay, fine. I don't think that's the best option, because I think forever, well, it's not going to be very good for you. And I think if you're not doing what's best for you, then you're not going to be in a position where your cup's full enough to do the best for the people around you. And then we've got an issue, because that starts to have a ripple effect on our environment and our community and the people around us. So you can do that, but I don't think you're going to like it, and I don't think it's going to be good for anybody. Yeah. So the other option is, well, okay, let's deal with this. Let's find that point where we don't want to get our hands in, and just be like, let's do it anyway, and let's see what happens. And you'll probably find that, hey, my hands didn't fall off. Hey, while I was doing that, like now my mind is able, and my body is able to be in this place that I wasn't able to do it before. And you can get that choice. Those traumas can come up, and you can be like, okay, I can keep reacting the way I react. Is that really serving my values? Is that actually what's going to put me in a better position tomorrow than I am today? And is that going to have a better impact on the world around me, or a worse impact if I step into that version of myself? Yeah. Easy answer to me.
And I feel like on the other side of those things that we avoid and resist is that version of us. And it's one of the questions we get people uncomfortable with at Cold and Conscious is, what are those things you're holding on to or avoiding? Can you step into those? Can you do those? And it's just a continuous thing. It's not like we do it once and it's, there's no more discomfort. It's like, no.
It spirals around.
Yeah, it's the circle of like, it'll keep coming up, and each time you get to face it and bring up something new and move through something new, which I think is such a powerful lesson and something that I wasn't focusing on much until I met you. Until I came to Cold and Conscious, and now, I definitely got the, the pleasure of being able to facilitate other people and hold space for other people through this process.
Amen.
But I think when I seen that and felt that, it was like, yeah, this is what I needed, and also what a lot of other people apparently need as well, because they keep showing up every week. So, yeah, what a powerful thing to be able to offer people, but for you to step into your truth and to share that with other people. And although we have to wrap up this conversation now, this is definitely going to be one of many that we have of how can we keep stepping into that, how can we keep doing those things that are coming up for us, because if we keep avoiding, we keep kind of avoiding the life that we want to live as well.
And honestly, the opportunities are around us all the time. Like, even just this right now, like, I know I'm feeling a little bit tired and flat today, but we've been meaning to do this podcast forever, and it doesn't really matter. I'm also aware that, like, we've been here all morning. The owner was kind of, like, confused what he's doing and everything. People are eating around us. So, like, I was kind of like, ooh, this is in my awareness right now, and I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this situation. But it's... I mean, you probably watch back, you probably don't notice. I probably look pretty calm. I don't know. I'll have a look. But, like, it's just, I was aware of that, and I'm like, hey, I'm not in my most comfortable zone right now, but I can still have this conversation. Just because I'm feeling that way, that doesn't mean shit.
What's your slogan that we just wrote on the board? We're not here to be comfortable. It's not designed to be comfortable.
Here to be comfortable. It's not easy, but that's the point.
That's the point. That's the point why we do these things, and why we've designed what we design is to make people step into that uncomfortableness for the intention and purpose of growth.
Now, I want to make a distinction really quickly as well, because it is there is pretty solid science around doing something very stressful in a safe environment versus a not safe environment. Like, as an example, because you have stresses that are just a stress to your body that aren't very good, but you also have stresses that are stressful so that you can grow. I won't get too much deeper on that, but if you're doing something like an ice bath or even breath work, like the fast, deep breath work kind of stuff, if you're doing that kind of a stress, there is a very big difference if you do it in a safe environment and you willingly go there. So if you say, I want to step into this ice bath knowing it's not going to be comfortable, and I choose to do it, it will have a dramatically positive impact on your health, on your mind, on every other factor, like physiologically, neurologically, everything. If I'm holding you down and you're trying to get out of the ice bath, but I'm like, no, wrestling you down, that's going to be dangerous for you, and that's not going to have a good impact. So that willingness to go there and the safety around it is really important, which is why we do it in a community aspect, because you are surrounded by people who are supporting you, who aren't judging you, and who are also going through this all themselves. Like you don't need to crash through walls to get to your discomfort zone. You just need to take a step out of it. And when you're in a place where you know you're safe enough to do that, that's when you can really have the best impacts around you. So, yeah.
And I feel like that even just knowing that is powerful for anyone that's listening, because it's like, there is things out there that you can go to and you can be supported as well. It's like, don't jump in the ice by yourself. Unless you're kind of trained. There's dangers to those things. So know where you need support, seek that support, and be in an environment that's designed for this to happen. Which I think is so powerful, and it is something that we will get to on another conversation and all the other things that we do. But if people want to connect with you and find you, where can they do so?
You can. Instagram's the best place, so you can jump on Cold and Conscious to keep up with all of that kind of side of things. If you want to see me personally, Stivka_, I'm sure you're going to put up links and everything. So, yeah. That's that.
All of that. And Cold and Conscious. So look that up on Instagram as well.
I said Cold and Conscious.
Did you?
That was the first thing I said. Come on, man.
Well,
you paying attention? What?
Cold and Conscious. I'm looking at all these cameras here. Cold and Conscious. Come down. Geelong. Altona.
Yep. Torquay relaunching in a couple of weeks. Mornington waiting on the council to do their thing. So hopefully that's only a couple of weeks away as well. Mildura. And stay tuned.
It's all happening and it's all coming to life. So go connect with Stivka. Come down to one of our events. I'm going to come to this camera over here. And
also, we are doing, we are also in studios too. So there are some yoga studios and stuff that we are creating regular sessions for. Like if you do feel like you want to bring that that resilience but community aspect to your own community, we do have options available so that we can sort that out as well. So I think that's worth knowing.
So many options and spaces where you can be held and move through these levels with people like us who are there to support you and guide you. So, Stivka. And
stepping through it ourselves too. Like, we're fucking there with you. We'll be in the ice. We'll see you there.
100%. And that's really important. Like, you got to be around those people and be supported by people that are actually doing the work too. Yeah. I think that's key.
Yeah.
As well. But, dude, thank you so much.
Thanks,
again,
brother.
I know we handshaked, but it's been amazing to connect with you and also go deep, but it's not the last time. So stay tuned. Make sure you check out everything. There's also a live event coming up in March. So go check that out. All the links will be in the show notes below. And, we'll be chatting very soon because we only reached the surface here. There's layers. So we're going to go to those. So take care, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, like, and share. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.